So I got it open. Uh, this looks like a very good scene. You know, I've already placed in all my animated characters, so uh, you'll see how like I've already added grass, I added people, and so on. I'm going to show you a couple things. I'm going to show you how to add like moving people or walking people. And I'm going to show you how to put in cars if there's cars on your site, right, that you want, and a couple things. So you see how like by adding in like certain things in here, it just looks nice, right? Like I've got butterflies flying around, I got kids running, got realistic trees. I still have my SketchUp trees. These are the trees I brought in from SketchUp. And if you brought in the models the way that, you know, we normally do, right? When you bring it in, there's all these like layers and whatnot. There's one thing in here that's called trees. Uh, what I did was I placed, like these are Twinmotion trees. I placed them in this rough same location as the SketchUp trees, right? So SketchUp trees, I would turn them off. They just don't look as good. And some of the textures don't transfer over. So here I have a bunch of white trees, okay? Doesn't look quite nice. So I'm turning them off and you can kind of see what it looks like. So you've already done the, you know, you've done this in the past, right? Like the whole like exporting to Twinmotion for project 3. So that's nothing like super special. Uh, I'm gonna hold on. I gotta turn off one thing from my camera. I'm gonna turn off parallelism because right now, if I look down, you can see how distorted things are. I'm gonna turn that off. I always want to turn on parallelism right before I render because I want my, well, render, animate different, right? So when I render, I always want parallelism on because I want those straight lines, right? So just to kind of show you what I mean, uh, when I'm here looking up, right? I'm looking up without parallelism. You can see how like the lines are kind of leaning, right? So with parallelism, this line is not leaning, and you can actually know which lines are supposed to be leaning, right? Turn it off. It's hard to tell. Like it's hard to tell if this is supposed to lean, this is supposed to lean. Is that different from this lean? Is that different from this lean and this lean, right? It's really hard to tell what is straight and what is not. So you turn on parallelism when you render, so you get this. You get this. So you know right away, and your clients will know right away. This is a straight wall, straight wall, straight wall, straight wall. All the structure is straight. But there's this piece that's not, this piece that's not, and this piece is not, right? So that's where you use parallelism. Unfortunately, when you're doing an animation, parallelism is not actually a great thing to use. The reason why I say that is because, look, when you look down, right? See how stretched out things look? Right? It's trying to keep this parallel like down, and it doesn't quite work. Like it looks so distorted that I wouldn't use it. It's super distorted. So I would turn this off because it should look something like this. When you are up in the air, you should give it that perspective, right? You should have like the vanishing points all go to a point. You're looking down at something, right? So this is where I think, you know, it's important to turn off parallelism when you're doing animation, but when you're rendering, it's actually quite useful. Okay, so go back to setting up this, you know, this file. I've got people, right? I kind of loop people with like cars, and I got plants, right? Plants, so on. So there's a lot of different things in here that I've added. So like to kind of show you how to create some of these things, like for example, the cars, let me delete the cars for one. Let me see if I can just get rid of the car. If I can find them. It's not actually that easy to, let's see if I can select it under people. Character path, nope, that's people. Character path, maybe it's, ooh, vehicle path, there you go, deleting that. So to add cars and people, right? The way you do this is you go under context, and you go to paths, and you have these things: bicycle, vehicle, character, and you can make your own custom one. But I don't quite recommend it. You have to like pick every single object that you put in there. You can have flying cubes, flying trees, whatever, right? It's weird. But let's just say you want to do vehicle path, right? So I'm going to do it inside my people. Let's set this as my, this is going to be my active, right? So let's see. Okay, so let's see. Set active container. Okay, so now whatever I draw will just drop into people. So here, context, paths, let's do a vehicle path. And then vehicle path will immediately ask you to like draw something. You kind of have to click on this pen tool to be able to do it. So we start here, go to here, here, and then eventually go to here, right? So you can kind of see how it's just starting to fill out. It's starting to fill out all the cars. It just goes from, it loads up over here, and then it ends it over here, right? So if I select this and I have, oh, my trees are back on. Unfortunately, we got to turn them off again. Sorry, 1 second. I accidentally touched it. Where are you, trees? I can delete them, but I really, every time I load from SketchUp to Twinmotion, the trees are just going to show up unless I delete them in SketchUp. So I'm just going to turn them off for now. All right, so got my vehicle. I got lanes, right? I can turn on 2 lanes. Lanes offset. How far are they apart? How dense? How many lanes do I have? 2 lanes per side. And how fast? Right. So this is pretty simple, right? It's really dense for keys are dry, so I'll just make it really light. Something like that. But that's really simple. If you have a lot of cars in your setting, right? You might want to just kind of do that, right? You just put some cars in here, and then and you'll see things move, right? There's people in them and so on. And if you have a lot of people walking in your site, you should do the same, right? Go to context, paths, add a character, and once you click there, there's nothing for you to click. So you have to hit this pen tool right here, right? So the pen tool is the basis of how you do all of this. And let's just say I want people to kind of walk around the lake. It's kind of dumb, but let's do it anyways. Right? And then you have just people walking in circles. They load from one point, and then they kind of go to the other. Right? Clothing, you can do office, beach, travel, traditional. I guess Twinmotion had planned to like do a lot of projects in like the Middle East, so they have a special like category, right? This is kind of interesting. We got a very religious lake right here. Right. So there's beachwear. So not that they're really beachy, but like beachy enough, right? So there's that. So I'm just gonna move it back to office or something like that. So everybody's wearing office attire, how width and so on, like, right? So there's all this stuff. You can also like, I don't know why they do this, because like people can't really be easily identified in just 3 categories, especially these days, right? So I just have them all checked, whatever, it's fine. And then that's it. That's how you create a path. It's really that simple. There's nothing really that complicated going on here. So let's see, there is a couple things that you want to do, you know, like to make sure that your thing works. I have some, obviously I have some like material issues uh, here and there, like this flickering, right? So I have some surface here that's like, you know, that's doubling up. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix it, but you know, what you want to do is make sure that like in SketchUp, you don't have too many double surfaces. Right now I have this surface and that surface occupying the same location. One of them is a glass, and the other one is, what do you call it? Glass and grass, and they're just flickering. So this is where it becomes problematic. I'm not gonna fix it right now because like, you know, I will have to go back to SketchUp, load it back in, so on. I'm gonna ignore it by like trying to not go there, okay? So that you won't see it. I'm just gonna fly around the building, okay? But it will haunt you in your animation. You'll see some flickering, okay? So that is definitely an issue that needs to be addressed in a lot of circumstances. You want to make sure your lighting is good. Set your location to San Francisco, just so that you don't get some weird, you know, weird like color. And you want to play around with your lighting. Um, you know, like location definitely. Like this is San Francisco. I think I already said it's San Francisco. Set the time of day, month, so on. When you're ready, you can finally go to this last category, media, and create a video, right? So you create a video. What you do is I already have two here. What you can do is you can hit this plus button and you can start to create this video. It's really not too complicated. What you're doing is you're setting up your path, just kind of like SketchUp. So let's just say, let's do the same. I'm gonna try to do like a similar, but not the same animation. Start here, right? Hit refresh to kind of refresh the scene. This is the starting point. And then I'll like walk forward. Whoa. And then I'll be over here. I'll hit the plus button to create another scene, right? I could move the camera up so that it's looking a little bit better, and then hit refresh. You'll see how it goes from here, you know, hitting this play button, and then I'll just move slowly to the next one. Right. So just creating these like sort of scenes. Where do you want to stop? So maybe here. Add another one. Yeah, you're definitely gonna see it. See the flickering. I apologize for that. Totally forgot that this mistake was here. So something like this. You want to make sure you're using people that are animated and not like the still ones. Otherwise, when you're flying past them, you're kind of just flying past like stone people, right? You wanna use people that aren't like just static and everything. And then like something like this, right? So I've created this, but if I hit play right now, you'll see how fast it's gonna go. You're like, well, why is it so fast, right? It's because right here it says I need to get from here all the way to the end in 10 seconds. So unlike SketchUp, it's not like each frame is 10 seconds or a defined second. It's the entire video is like how long, right? So if I set this to 20 seconds, you'll see how all of a sudden it's a little bit more slower, right? Slower by half. Still pretty fast. You know, so if you set it to 40 seconds, it's even slower. So now it's very smooth. But 40 seconds might be too slow, right? Like it's just gonna drag on forever, and you'll just see the flickering longer. Right. That's really it in terms of like the animation part. You have to export this, but setting this up, pretty simple, right? It does require you to like pay a little more attention to the people, right? Uh, if you have a lot of like static looking people, it just doesn't look good. So you'll see how like I have a bunch of people that are slightly moving, right? So if you kind of come back here and look at your characters, right? I'm not using the pose humans. I'm not using the cutouts, or I'm just using animated humans because they're all kind of moving, doing stuff. And I'm really creating a scene, right? Like people are having, these guys are having a picnic here. There's pizza, bread, and whatnot. Pizza, a lot of carbs. Balance it with some fruits. So you got people there. You got a little kid running around. I added some butterflies, right? So I did put some, like flowers in the foreground. I know you don't see it, but like in the back over here, uh, this is pretty cool too. Unfortunately, you don't get to see it in this animation. You see a bunch of people dancing in there, and there's a bunch of people walking in circles, right? It's not really like that's not what I had intended, but like it just looks better like a dance club with like more activity inside, right? So there's that. So when I'm done with this animation or with this like kind of sequence, I go back to video. So you do have some ability to kind of like change like what's the size of the output, right? But at that point, it's a little too late if you want to play around with styles, right? You should set up your styles before you do your animation. If you go back in here and you play around with the styles, like by hitting more, you can play around with the weathers and whatnot. But the problem with this is that like each one has their own unique weather, right? So you gotta like go and change all of them, and that's a lot of work. So you can do this. You can set like, so I have the springtime thingy going on right here, right? So what if I like go over here and I decide, you know, to change it so that it becomes winter, right? Like this frame right here, I change it to like kind of bad weather, like raining or something like that, or like, and I know it doesn't snow in California, so we can't really do some crazy stuff like snow. But let's just say I change it to rain, like on this particular, you know, hold on, you got to go back here. I got to change it to rain. I can hit the refresh button, and you see how like now it's raining for this scene, right? So it transitions from sunny to rainy in one scene, and you'll see how the trees go from green to yellow because it's changing seasons, right? It'll actually know that it's changing in seasons. And I don't want to change back to spring within one scene, right? What I can do is I can click on this, copy ambience. So that's all the changes you've made, right? All the like things that you've done under more, copy ambience. You can go under here and do paste ambience, and you'll see how like it's gonna start raining. There's a little bit of rain on the inside. I think like I didn't do a good job up here, but I think it'll be okay when it's actually like rendering. It won't actually leak in here. This is not a solid, so it has issues with like how it's portraying it. But you can see the rain that's on the side of the the windows. And I get to here, I can change it yet again. I can paste my ambience so it's raining, and I might even change it some more. Hit more. Let's go with full on snow. All right, so but snow, rain, really, really heavy on the computer. Okay, and then when you go back to the very end, it just, if I set it to spring, it goes right back to the normal. Okay, so that's it for this particular area. So this video 3, and to export it, you just go to export, and then you see how everything is empty, right? So nothing to export. So instead of image this time, you export a video. I'm going to do video 3, and then come back out here, hit export. And it'll ask you, where do you want to export it? Put it in my desktop. It's been interesting, like seeing this. And depending on what computer you have and like what weather settings that you have, right? This could take no time, it could take a lot of time. And I'm guessing it's going to take a long time for me because, well, 8 minutes is not bad. 7 minutes is not bad. But this is the fastest animation, like, well, the way to make an animation, okay? It's not perfect because it's a video game engine. It's cheating a lot on its lighting, right? It's not casting 100% real shadows and isn't simulating light 100% like ray tracing, right? So in Project 2, you use Podium. It's got the most realistic lighting ever. This is more like a simulation of it, and they're cheating a little bit on it. So, but the difference is you're making an animation that only takes 2 minutes or 3 minutes to render, okay? It used to take 3 days to render something like this, right? When I was in school, it took 3 days to render something like this, okay? With weather, man, it's impossible to do. Like there's like all these other elements you have to think about. Right now, it's just like a push of a button, couple of like dials, and you're done. It's super, super intuitive. But you know, some offices will never use Twinmotion because the material simulation is too, how do I say it? It's not real enough, right? Like if you're doing realistic lighting conditions, I don't think that Twinmotion is the best representation of it. It gets close enough to realism, but it's not real. It's not the 100% real. There's no ray tracing. That's what you really want, ray tracing, right? So I'm gonna let this run, and I'll show you guys like an example of one that I did yesterday. Let's see. Looks kind of like, well, I didn't do this yesterday. I did this like last semester when I was finally trying to figure out how to integrate animation into the class. Really simple, right? And you can see how big of a difference it makes to have people that are walking and using the space rather than just standing still, not doing anything. They're actually walking, doing some stuff. But watch out for things like this, right? Like if you're using birds, right? So here's my bird that's flying into a wall right there. You can kind of see it, right? And then I ran into a person, right? It's really hard to control the people are constantly moving, so you're not in control of where the people are at any given moment. So there are, there's definitely some like idiosyncrasies of using a gaming engine that people are just doing whatever the heck they want to do. You can't really control it. And so, if your camera runs into it, your camera runs into it. You can try to move your camera a little bit to the left, but think about it. The next time your camera moves through that location, that person is going to be in a different location. So you can't really control all these things. But what you can control are like the weather. You can control the speed of your camera. You can control like, probably roughly where people are, so you can kind of avoid them. With enough practice, this can be a very powerful way to like kind of show off architecture. I kind of first learned about this when I first learned about Twinmotion when students started asking me about the Unreal Engine, and Twinmotion is based off of the Unreal Engine, and Epic Games, they bought like Twinmotion, so it became free. So I just kind of picked it up, and it was later when I realized that Twinmotion was available for both PC and Macs. That's when I decided to use it for this class. Okay. Previously, Twinmotion it's a relatively new software. It's only been around for maybe like 2-3 years. Okay, like previously Lumion, which by the way is still like producing some of the best renderings using a gaming engine as you can. Uh, it was only available for PCs, so it was like one of those situations where like half my class can't use it. So now with Twinmotion, both Mac and PC users can. But I just want to remind you that like not all offices are going to be Mac, and not all offices are going to be in PC. So the software you use is heavily dependent on, those type of offices you end up in, right? If you think about it, AutoCAD, you can use it on Mac, but there's a more specific one, like I think it's like Vectorworks, ArchiCAD. There's two other softwares that like offices would use, right? And it's more like stronger for Macs. So the software you use is not really important. Knowing the concepts, so how they work and what's going on, is probably more important than anything else. So I think we finished exporting that video. I'm trying to figure out where it is. Let's see, was it this one? Yeah. 25-second video exported in, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes. No rain in here. Well, there's a rain there and it snows. And that's it, right? I know it looks simpler than it really is, but it's really like just kind of getting used to like different ways of setting your animations in process. So just a summary really quickly. Before you like start, right? Like before you start like animating, you want to make sure you put in a bunch of people, trees, replace the trees from SketchUp if they look like too funky, right? The real trees always look better. And you would want to make sure you set it up in such a way where your add-in is everything you brought in from SketchUp, right? So obviously you could turn off the group of trees that you added. So I have people, new plants. You can definitely have more folders. I decided to just keep them in these two. You can have one for, inside this, you can have another container, one for like plants, another one for trees. And under like, instead of using people, you can say Entourage, and you can have people, you can have cars, animals, and whatnot. So you'll place things like cars, right? Cars and people by using paths. By doing that, you have the ability to like kind of animate the scene. You want to make sure the people you place on here are not the pose people, because they'll just stand there and look really dumb. They'll like, well, maybe not always. This guy will just stand there and just look like a statue while you fly around him, right? And as you're trying to fly around him, everybody else is like moving. So that looks kind of dumb and statue-like, right? So you don't want to use like static people. Rather, you don't want to use pose people. You want to use animated humans, right? And you want to use paths of people walking around and so on. And then when you're ready, set your weather, turn off your parallelism camera, right? Turn off this camera, turn off parallelism, set your weather, hold on, location, right? Timing, and then also like weather, whatever you want. And then when you're ready, you go under this final media button and go to video, and then you create one of your new videos by creating new scenes, and very importantly, setting how long you want the sequence to be. Okay, so like if you make it longer, you can always like speed it up, right? But maybe not, because if you speed it up, the people will be walking much faster, right? So, but you can't take something very slow and make it even slower. It just becomes more choppy, right? So if you take something that's 24 frames per second, and all of a sudden you stretch it to 10 frames per second, it becomes very choppy. So once you've got your video, you export it, and then you pick the video that you want to export, and then you hit export, and then you get a video, right? So the idea here is that by next week, you should have as many of the different animation paths like rendered as you can, right? Because next week is dedicated to learning Premiere, which is obviously going to be another software, right? Something completely new to you. So you want to like just get as much of your animation done this weekend as you can. Obviously, you still have some time before the final, but the earlier you get the animations out, the more time you can spend editing. And editing is actually about half the work, I would say. It's like you might think of editing as like I just put all the videos together and it's done, but in actuality, editing, well, that's why in Hollywood they actually have directors and they have editors, right? They actually separate the tasks because it's actually a field on its own. So you'll learn a little bit about how to put the video together and how to deal with transitions, text, and music, right? And it all comes together. At this point, you should start thinking about what type of music you want to use for your animation. And that could set the beat and the tone, right? A little bit. I've had some really fun ones, and I had some really depressing songs as well. But we'll see how that goes next week. Okay. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm gonna like stop it here and just answer anything. No questions. Is Twinmotion really that intuitive?
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a way to change the background image with the city skyline?
Yes, but it's limited. Okay.
Okay.
So under, I think it's under like hold on. Let me exit out of media mode. Believe it's under urban. Nope, it's not it. So hold on. It's the other one, location, background. So it's a picture here, but you can't really like. I haven't looked too deeply into this, but I believe you can like add more because you can see how there's like empty frames right here, right? So I believe you can add more. I just don't know how. But they're like 360 images. You notice how it's like, it's like a round image that goes all the way around the entire, it's probably a PNG, right? But it goes all the way around, and that's not. Somebody was saying that's Tokyo. That's not Tokyo. I can tell you it's not Tokyo because like this building is the same as this building. These buildings are the same as these buildings over here. So it's not really Tokyo. And then like if you turn around on the other side, it's the same set of buildings, right? So if you click over here, you can put it in the mountains. None, right? You can have island, city. City and like you see how like it's not like really that complicated. There's really not much that you can do, right? That's really it. That's all the choices you have. Hope that answers your question. I mean, most people just have something in the background so it doesn't look empty. And what they do is they build out their site a little bit to include like buildings that are nearby, big trees. You might even do something like let's go back to a video. You might even go as far as like turn on. Let's see. You might even turn on fog. Where the heck is it? Lighting? No, I think it's under. No, I keep forgetting where it is. Like it's like smog or something. Oh, there it is. Smog. You might turn on smog, and then you can't really see the background too well. It's like all blurred out. But you have to do it early on, otherwise you have to go back to each single one and copy and paste, right? So smog allows you to hide the background a little bit. If you pump it up all the way like this, you see that there's something in the background, not quite there, right? Like you're like, oh, is that San Francisco or is that LA? Don't quite know. Or Manhattan or Tokyo. Okay, sorry, that's the most limited thing, you know, in Twinmotion. It's the background. Any other questions? Okay. I think it's really just time for you guys to like play with the tools you have. You have both SketchUp for animating and you have Twinmotion for animating, right? Both are quite powerful in their own right. I did want to show you this before I leave. I did manage to do one. I think I did one. Here's one with fog. I animated it using SketchUp during our break. It took a little longer than I normally would like, but you can see how like turning on the fog gives it its own characteristics, right? So this is an interesting type of animation on its own right. Okay, I'm not saying one is better than another, right? Obviously, you can't have animated characters here walking around and stuff like that. You'll have static figures here and there, right? It's not. It feels really empty, right? Whereas compared to like Twinmotion, it just feels like it's lived in characteristic. It's got liveliness, and the architecture has kind of more realistic looking lighting and materials. So there are styles, right? Styles that you can kind of use and play around with. So neither one, I think, is. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. It just depends on what you're trying to show. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna end it here. I'll talk to you guys next. Let's see. Hey, Francisco, can you stay for a second?
Yes.
I'm gonna talk. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to you, but like for the rest of you guys, I'll see you guys next week, right? And have a good weekend. And next week is Thanksgiving, right? Well, Thursday. So Wednesday will be kind of a weird day. Some people will be here, others won't, right? All right. I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Okay, bye. Right, hold on one second.